Hi, Maria from the Watershed Center here, and I'm out at the creek today to talk to you about some planning considerations you might want to take into account when preparing for your field data collection day. So this day is entirely field-based and river access is key. There are a few things you can do without river access, but for this purposes of this video we're going to talk about the river. So we're going to talk about how to choose a site and then some other logistics you might want to think about. So your first thing to think about when choosing a site is river access. You want it to ideally be close to your school or to be able to arrange for some sort of transportation, a bus, or we were very fortunate and we got to walk our students here, but I realize that won't be the case for everyone. You also want to think about the actual banks of the creek. So we've chosen this site here because there are some gentle banks where students can walk down safely to the creek and collect their water samples. You may need to involve adults if you don't have safe bank access. Another thing to think about is when you are choosing your site. So here in Colorado we get really high water in the spring as all the snow melts and runs off. That might vary depending on where you are in the country, but surely there will be some times of the year where you want to think about not having students in or near the creek, or again involving adults to take the danger out of collecting their water samples. So some other logistical concerns: if you are implementing this day as written in the lesson plan, it takes at minimum about an hour and 15 minutes, so that accounts for 20-minute stations and then some intro and wrap-up time as well as transitions between stations. You can obviously rearrange this however works best for your classroom or your group of participants. If you don't have a ton of staff on hand, maybe you could just do the activities in order, just one after the other, instead of rotating stations, such that students are never in more than one place at one time. Because if, again, you are doing this as written, we recommend having at minimum 5 informed adults. So that's people who understand what's going on, know where to be, know what to do. There are places in this lesson plan where folks such as high school volunteers or parent volunteers could pitch in and participate in lead stations. So for example, the Build-A-Filter station's a pretty simple concept, and you could kind of walk up to that and teach it regardless of your knowledge coming into it. So that's a good place to incorporate non-informed instructors, but at minimum you're going to want about 5 folks who really know what's going on, and most of those people will go towards the data collection station itself. So that's helping kids collect their water samples from the creek, helping them use the equipment. This is a station where we really want kids to feel comfortable, especially if this is a new experience for them and they've never collected their own data before. We really want them to walk away from this experience feeling confident using scientific equipment and in their ability to collect their own data. Last but not least, we recognize that this part of the lesson plan is a bit resource heavy. So what to do if you don't have creek access or testing equipment or 50 million staff to run the day? If you don't have access to the river, you could consider using a pond or a ditch or an alternative water source. You could even have someone go out and collect a bucket of water before the lesson and have your students test it in the classroom. You just want to change some of the language in other parts of the lesson plan where it's talking about measuring the difference between an upstream and a downstream location to be talking about maybe measuring the same point but at different points in time. Or use the theoretical approach and talk to your students how water quality might change if they were to measure at a different time or place. If you don't have testing equipment, first of all, if you're in the St. Vrain Watershed, feel free to reach out to the Watershed Center. We do loan our equipment out as part of our equipment library. You could also improvise. You could take water temperature using a cheap thermometer. You could use a homemade Secchi disc to test clarity of the water and infer turbidity from that. There are lots of different ways you can get students thinking about testing equipment and making observations about the world around them.